Well, hello, this is Coach Z, and this is the old and the new. And today we have the oldies and the goodies. We've got three guys here today who are iconic figures in the St. Louis area in sports back in the 50s. And I'm not going to pretend that I'm not an oldie either because I played back in the 50s also. But we're going to have a good time. Before we start, I'm wearing a shirt here. It says Tully's on it, and that's a neighborhood. It's called Tully's Tap Room, and it's a great place to go if you want to have a quick drink and have a nice sandwich and appetizers. And they were very nice. The other day, they allowed me to be interviewed there about the Boys of '76, which was a 50-year reunion of Kansas City Center. They won the state championship in 1976. They were undefeated, and they played St. Louis Central with Johnny Parker, and they were also undefeated. It's the last, or only probably, according to people that I've talked to, only a championship game in the history of high school basketball in Missouri in large schools that two undefeated teams played each other. And behind me is a Ladue freshman football shirt to prove that I did coach freshman football. And then behind me on the other side in the red is a Maccabi Games sweatshirt that my daughter, who's in charge of the St. Louis Maccabi group, is involved in. Now we'll go to these guys and no more me. So I want to introduce everybody here. Mr. Bob Hardcastle, say hello, sir.
Hey, hello.
And Mr. Rich Rogers.
Nice to be here, Ron.
And Sandy Pomerantz.
Ron, thank you for having me here as well with these luminaries.
Well, they are luminaries, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to start off here. I guess I'm looking right at Mr. Hardcastle. Mr. Hardcastle was a member of the 1956 Stockton Post National American Legion championship team. And before I say anything, I was honored myself to umpire 5 of those national championship games, and I just know how important those games are, Bob.
Yeah, it was a thrill. If you look back on most of our playing time for everybody that was on the team, they'll all tell you that 1956 was it. Nothing was better than winning that national championship and getting there. That was what was really fun.
And, you know, I did some research on this, and I didn't do a lot of research when I was in school as a student, but I did some research, and I saw that Robbie Robinson was the only African-American on your team, and how you guys supported him when you were on the road on the way to this national championship.
Yeah, we were playing, one thing that really stood up, we were playing in Oklahoma City, and we had a rainout. So we decided, all of us, to go to the show. So we went to the show, and we're buying our ticket and everything, and Robbie comes up, and they use the N-word, and they said, we don't allow N-words in here, you know. So we gathered around, we asked for our money back, and they wouldn't give us our money back. And so we asked for the manager. Manager came out and he said, we don't allow them in here. And we said, well, we already bought our tickets. Let us go in. We'll go in as a big group. And he said, well, the only way you can sit is up in the back. So we went to the game. We went to the show, had a great time, and all of us went to the show.
Yeah, and Robbie's son became a St. Louis Cardinal.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, Kerry played for a bunch of years. I'll tell you, when you talk about Robbie, we probably wouldn't have gotten that national championship for many of the guys on the team. But we're playing Baldwin, and whoever wins the county and goes on. And we're winning 3-2 in the 7th inning. Now, this is the 7th inning of a 7-inning game, and they were home team, and they're batting. First guy comes up and hits a triple. Okay, they got a guy on third base, and next guy strikes out. Next guy pops up. Next guy hits a ball way over my head at shortstop, way out, and we were playing it at night, and the lights were angled into the infield, and you couldn't see the outfielders. So the ball goes out of sight, and all you see is Robbie turned around and he runs into darkness. So here's our only African-American guy on the team, and he's running into blackness. And the guys are running around the base. The guy ties it up naturally from third base. The guy going around second. I'm yelling, Robbie, hit me, because I'm thinking, he's got the ball someplace. And all of a sudden, out of the black, here comes a gold tooth and a white ball. and he's smiling because he caught the ball. Nobody had any idea he caught it. We go on and win the game.
That's awesome. And listen, sitting next to you is Mr. Rich Rogers. And before we get started, Rich Rogers not only was a great athlete at Beaumont High School. Rich, tell me a little bit about, and you still show him the respect. You call him Mr. Stanton.
Well, again, Mr. Stanton was special to me. I had the pleasure of, playing 4 years of varsity basketball, although as a freshman I didn't dress out all the time. It wasn't until mid-year that I was able to join a team in terms of dressing for games. But he was special in the sense that he had a knack. I always said, it was like E.F. Hutton when he spoke, everybody listened. And he just had that knack. I never saw him lose his cool. When things were going south, so to speak, he was always ready to step up and give you the best advice. Talking about, the N-word and the ability to be able to go in the room when St. Louis U, I roomed with Cal Burnett, who was our only black player. And when we went to certain cities back in 1956, 57, he could not stay in the same hotels with us. We, in 58, went to the NCAA, and we played in Dallas, and Kansas was down there with Wilt, and we had Cal. So we had to stay out of the city limits. We stayed out. And everybody was waiting for Wilt to come to the motel. And Kansas shows up, and we're all waiting to see him, this guy. And the bus, everybody gets off the bus, no Wilt. An hour later, a limousine pulls up with a driver and a chauffeur, and here comes Wilt. And this guy takes all his musical equipment and all of everything he had. It was amazing to see what happened. But we came through, or at least Sandy and Bob. We came through an era when, again, integration was really taking place. My senior year is when the public school, the first Negro people were allowed to go to high school. And in January of 1955, Bob was a freshman, and I was a senior that year.
Well, when I graduated from University City in 1957, there was one African-American in our 424-member senior class, and she was the daughter of the custodian at U City. Her name was Denora Jones, and she turned out to be an unbelievable young lady, had a lot of success in her life, but I've always wondered what she must have felt like every day walking through the halls of U City, and there was no other African-American but her. She was a strong gal. I'm very proud of everything that she's done. And speaking of University City, sitting next to me right here is, I always tell everybody, and I get in a lot of arguments with a lot of guys who are younger than me. I say, Pomerantz is definitely the greatest player that ever played at U City. Oh, Ron, but what about Jack Steiner? And I say, hey, listen. I mean, Hassan Houston was a great player. But Sandy still, in my opinion, was the greatest player in the history of University City High School. High school All-American. The first high school All-American, I believe, to come out of St. Louis, because I don't think they had him before that year. I don't know. Maybe, Rich, you might know different.
Well, the All-American used to have a, publish, the All-American. They're select All-Americans, but I think the recognition that Sandy got was, that was new. I don't think that it was.
What was that like, Sandy, when you were chosen? You went to New York. I remember that.
Yeah, that was a parade All-American team that some guy selected. So
Right.
we were in parade. And then at that time, if you were on the first team, they took the team to New York, and they took the college All-American team to New York, and we were on the Steve Allen show. And really all we did was, I dribbled the basketball out on the court and handed it to Jerry Lucas. And then Don Knotts, who was on the Steve Allen show, was about 4 foot tall, came out and handed everyone a trophy. And that was sort of the the laugh of the show. But I mean, it was an experience. I had never been in New York, and just the first person I saw when we all stayed at the college All-American team and the high school All-American team stayed at the same hotel. And the first guy I saw when I walked in the hotel was Will Chamberlain. And I never seen anyone anywhere near that big or that tall. And that was the first and last experience that I had with Will Chamberlain.
Well, you're talking about Chamberlain, so I'm going to tell a story on myself. So when I was a senior in high school, and I was a terrible student, and I had some behavior problems, but I was sitting in a class at the end of basketball, and I have proof of this, by the way. I have the letter. And one of the girls who I guess worked in the office, one of the students, she came down to the room I was in, and she gave me this letter. And I opened it up. It was from Dick Harp, and he complimented me on my senior year in basketball and invited me to come take a visit to the University of Kansas. And I was like shocked. I was like, I'm not that good, but maybe I don't, I'm not looking at myself the way this guy is. So anyway, I'm pretty excited about it. And then Kansas sent an assistant coach to University City High School to find out a little bit more about me. And they went in to see a guy by the name of Kettlecamp. He was a counselor. Well, that was the end of my possible visit to the University of Kansas. But I was honored to get the letter at least. And I really wanted to go there for one reason. I wanted to meet Wilt Chamberlain. That's when he was a senior. So anyway, that's my day in history.
Will only played his sophomore year, and then he went with the Globetrotters for 2 years.
I thought he played until his senior year.
He played against. They lost to North Carolina.
Yes.
And that was 57, 58.
Yeah,
that was the
that's
year
right.
That was the year that we were in the same regional with them down in Dallas. And I thought that was it for him. He only played that year and then went on because, like everybody said, he took a pay cut to go to the Globetrotters.
Hey, Rich, who'd you play for at St. Louis University?
Ed Hickey was the basketball coach.
You played for Hickey, huh? What was his style? Run and gun and shoot it?
Well, I don't think he ever really used the word defense. I don't even remember him talking about defense. All of our time really was spent on offense and the 3-lane fast break, and it was based on passing rather than dribbling, and you use your trailers, and it was he was astute in terms of what he wanted you to do, and that. But we had, my sophomore year, I was lucky enough to win the Valley and to go to the Missouri, to the regional down in Dallas, like I said. And we ended up getting beat by Oklahoma City, believe it or not.
Abe Lemons.
Abe Lemons was coaching the team, but they had a guy by the name of Hub Reed. I don't know if you
Yeah,
remember
sure.
that.
He played for the Hawks.
Right. He was the #1 draft choice of the Hawks. And they had another guard by the name of Joe Lee. I don't know why I remember these two guys. But they beat us by 7 or 8 points. And that SMU was down there with all the kids from
Krebs and it was Krebs and Hersher.
Hersher was there, right? And Mills.
Yeah.
They were recruited from Webster and from Cleveland.
Yep.
Harold Alcorn went down there. Harold ended up obviously being a star for us. But he went one semester and he came back home. But what a great guy!
He was really a great guy. He was a member of the 1, 2, 3 club, Harold Alcorn, and what a wonderful guy. And oh my goodness, the man when he lost his son at a young age, that knocked Harold.
It was devastating.
I don't think he ever really recovered. His son was a great player, and at a young age got cancer, and they lost him. Bob. Let's talk a little bit about Itchy Jones, your baseball coach at SIU after you, ended your great career at Beaumont High School. And by the way, when you were at Beaumont High School, what year did you win the state championship?
56. Won the state championship in 56. Went immediately across the street to Fairgrounds Park and started practicing with Stock and Post. And so we won the state in 56. We won the national championship in 56.
So you won both of those the same year. That's awesome.
Same year.
And you had Bobby Miller with you. He was a great pitcher.
Great pitcher. I'll tell you a quick story about Bobby Miller. in that year where, again, there's so many times things can turn and you're out, but we're playing Vashon. We're playing in to win the city championship. And we're beating Vashon in the 6th inning 4-3. And our pitcher, Sterling Parsons, loads the bases. There's nobody out. 3 balls and no strikes on the batter. Elliott, our coach, calls timeout and comes out, pulls Parsons, and puts Miller in the game with 3 balls, no strikes, bases loaded, no out, and Bob threw 9 straight strikes for 3 straight strikeouts. It was unbelievable.
Well, you know, the Cardinals needed a few strikes last night in the 9th inning, didn't they?
Yeah.
You know, and by the way, I was sitting there with my grandson who played over at Parkway West, Luke Brockman. And I said, the Cardinals are going to lose this game. I says, the kid out there can't throw a breaking ball for a strike. Ball. And then he had to throw, and they were just sitting on it. And I felt bad for him. Rich Rogers. Well, let's go back to you, though, first, Bob. Let's talk about Itchy and that statue.
Yeah, so we've got, we were going to raise money for Itch. Now, Itch he was the second baseman my freshman year. It was his junior year. So I was a shortstop. So for 2 years, we played right next to each other. We had more fun. I mean, he took me under his wing. I didn't know what was going on at Southern. He told me what to do, that type of thing. And during the games, we would just talk all through. Hey, Bob, is your girl coming down from St. Louis? Hey, Itch, is Sue what are you guys going to do? Well, we're going to go up to her. And so we just had a great relationship, and it just carried on all the way the last year, right to the last 2 years before he died. I went to see him a couple times in Champaign, went to see him when he moved over to Oklahoma to stay with his daughter.
Thanks.
But then he calls me and he says, he'd been coaching for about 14 years at Southern. And he calls me and he says, I'm leaving. And so, you're too young to retire. What do you mean you're leaving? He said, Jim Hart, who was the athletic director then, it was when the women's program first came in. And the women were mad at Jim because he wouldn't take the scholarships away from the guys too soon. The guys' coaches were mad at Jim because he was taking the scholarships away. Jim told Itch, no more money. I can't give you any more. And U of I said, we'll double your salary, which will double your pension. And he went. And all that time he was gone, people just loved him. And now we've got a statue going up October 17th. And we raised over $220,000 for a gentleman who hasn't coached there in over 30 years.
Well, that's just unbelievable. So last night, I was with my grandson, and I told him that I was going to have Mr. Rogers here today, and he really had some great things to say about you. But let me just tell you this, whoever's listening to this or watching this, Rich Rogers was the first kid who ever played basketball at Parkway West and is still there. So he has seen every young boy who's been a basketball player. It's 57 or 58 years, Rich?
58.
58 years he's seen every basketball and coached every basketball player at Parkway West. Can we talk a little bit about the coaches you were with, Rich, and everything?
Sure. I was blessed. Mike Pratt was the first head coach at Parkway West, and Mike was a little younger than myself, and there was some question, how would I adapt, to working with a younger man. But Mike and I have been together now 58 years, never had a bad word, and we're still best friends in terms of he's living up outside of Herman in Rhineland again. And
he was our catcher at SIU.
Yeah.
So that's where I met Mike.
Yeah, Mike was, really worked hard, knowledgeable. Again, I can remember one of the comments he made at our banquet at the end of the year, and it related to kids having fun, what it's all about in terms of basketball. And then Bill Soderman came along, and while Bill was with us for 20 years or thereabouts in terms of had a very successful, career there. And again, where I was lucky, those guys let me coach. That was the thing that I like to work fundamentals as much as anything else. I'm not the brightest guy in the sky, but I know that if you're fundamentally sound, it's a step in the right direction. And then John Wright has taken over, extremely bright, hardworking, has taken each one of these gentlemen took the program to another level. And again, I've been very fortunate to have worked with those gentlemen and have the enjoyment that I have. By the way, I caught Bobby Miller. I was on the Stockton Post team from 53, 54, 55, and Bob, was our reliever in 55, and we got knocked out of the districts over there. And in high school, we were undefeated except for one game we lost in the districts. Yeah, and same thing happened in basketball where we got knocked off.
Did you play for a state championship in basketball?
Nah, we lost to Joplin in 1955 in overtime. Ironically, my man scored a winning bucket for them. It was not a happy moment, but
yeah. Well, Sandy, he was a starter. Probably the first starter at U City in those days as a sophomore, and I think that was the greatest U City team that was ever assembled. And unfortunately, and Sandy can tell you more about it, but unfortunately, late in the year, Wilbur Marsh, who went down to SMU and he was a captain of SMU, he got hurt. And talk a little bit about that team, Sandy. And by the way, my daughter's father-in-law, my daughter Kim. Jack Helligman, he was a point guard on that team and a really smart guy and not a great shooter, but he could sure defend you and he was just very smart. He ran the offense on that team.
Well, Wilbur was the center. He was 6'5", very strong, and he was our best rebounder, and he and I were both the top scorers. And with him, really, nobody really gave us a game. I mean, we ended up winning the Normandy tournament, who had a great player, and they were seeded number one. They had Jack Perry, who I'm sure Rich remembers him well.
Very well.
Perry was on that team, and we ended up beating Maplewood, where Perry played, by 27 points. Of course, we had Wilbur in the middle. And at the end of the season, Wilbur was having problems with his foot and ankle. And I'll never forget, on a Saturday morning, he and I drove over to the old St. Luke's Hospital, and he took an x-ray, and they said he has a broken bone in his foot. Wilbur's father was a chiropractor who really didn't believe in medicine. And I'll never forget dropping Wilbur off, I probably wasn't even driving then. In fact, I wasn't. We went to Wilbur's house, and he had a cast on his leg, and his father looked at him. I wasn't going to disown him, but he realized he broke his leg. And Wilbur came back at the end of the season, but he never was himself. And we lost a few games without Wilbur because we couldn't get the boards. I was 6'4", weighed about 155 pounds, and Wilbur was 6'5", may have weighed 200 pounds. Without him, we were hurting, and then we ended up losing in the state tournament, which we expected to lose. But with him, we really had a good ball club because we had some players that accompanied Wilbur that were good at what they did. Jack Helligman was a great defensive player, but Wilbur was really the center of it all.
Well, they played Mercy in the district final, and U City with Wilbur was so much better than Mercy, but Mercy beat him.
Well, Jack Perry, as you said, was a great player at Maplewood. Beaumont played them in the finals of that 56, championship.
And beat them.
Exactly,
yeah.
right.
I remember they came out with that colored ball. Remember, man? They were showmen.
Well, we played Perry. He was a junior when I was a senior in the finals of the Normandy tournament and beat them in 54, I guess it was. Yeah.
You mentioned the Normandy tournament, and all three of us have had our great experience in that tournament. I think people could argue with me. I think that's the greatest high school tournament that this city's ever had. What do you think, Rich?
No doubt about it. Well, it was 32 teams, which was unfathomable. You know, and they had two divisions, 16 teams, the red and the green division, and it was exciting. I'll tell you what. Again, you can throw all the names of all the great basketball players that ever played in St. Louis, played in the Normandy tournament back in the 50s and the 60s until, you know, the year 56 when, again, I think it was 55, 56 school year maybe, that the public high league started, you know, and all the public high league teams pulled out of the Normandy tournament. But even at Parkway West, we our second year or maybe our third year, we were able to play in the Normandy tournament. It was, again, unbelievable.
Yeah, I thought that tournament was, for me as an official, when I got hired by a Vern Winter and a John Masterson, when they called me and said, would you like to, I thought that I was working the NCAA finals. I was just a high school official then. And when I went over there, you guys, here's who I'm working with in that Normandy tournament. Dave Phillips, Major League umpire. Gene Barth, you remember Gene Barth from Beaumont days?
Yeah, I know Gene.
Gene Barth.
We knew Gene very well.
Rich Hantek.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're talking about the iconic referees in the St. Louis area, and here I am working with them. So that to me was a big boost in my career.
Yeah, you know, when I was a senior, we won it when I was a sophomore, and then we won it when I was a senior. And when I was a senior, people start talking about this 9th grade kid from Crystal City.
I was just going to say.
And he said, you know, there's this kid, he's about 6'4", 6'5", that really looks like he's going to be a player. And I remember it was Bill Bradley was in 9th grade, and that's where he first played. The first time I remember him was, and later, I think I had broken most of the scoring records my senior year, the most points in this tournament and this and that. And Ferry had the record before me for most of them. And I figured, well, this will last for a while. It did. It lasted for 2 years. You know, Bradley was a senior. He broke every single one of them. And, of course, that's where he got his notoriety here in St. Louis, was playing in the Normandy tournament.
Yeah.
Well, what was great about Bradley, that they went and they lost to St. Louis U High in a state championship game. But Bradley, I saw the game. I mean, he was playing with 4 guys who were just kind of okay. Really.
Right.
I mean, by himself, he got that team and they should have won that game. I think that
didn't he pass off or something?
Yeah, kid had an open layup and missed it at the end of the game. I mean, no, he was some kind of player. Neither so were you, and so were you. I mean, you're great players. Let's talk a little bit about today now, and you know, because it's supposed to be the old and the new. And what do you think about the high school athletes today? And I'll start with you, Rich, because you're still in the schools where they're telling these kids, you know, if you play soccer, well, that's that club team. You're not going to play anything else. You're just going to play this club soccer all year round. I just can't even fathom that in my day.
Well, I'm disappointed in the direction that, you know, amateur athletics is taken with regard to the club sports, and it's not one of them. It's all of them, and it started way back when with actually swimming, when you had your swim clubs, and the kids were, you know, choose between high school and their swim clubs. And we were always pretty fortunate at West to have great swimmers. So even though some of them didn't swim for us, we had enough that were winning state championships with them. But it's gravitated, as you know, to soccer and the baseball and the basketball and the volleyball. And people are paying huge sums of money for their youngsters to play ball with the idea that it's going to end up in a college scholarship. And I was even talking to somebody yesterday, and they were talking about now all of a sudden the youngsters not only are thinking in terms of the club and high school, but they're already counting their money in terms of going to college, you know, in terms of what they're going to get. And we had a couple of players, football players. One of them was a youngster, and I don't name names, but anyway, he was going to Lindenwood. He transferred from Lindenwood to Iowa State, was at Iowa State, had a lot of success there, and all of a sudden, he's at Michigan State now, and with the idea that he may even be drafted in a fairly high draft, you know. And then we had another youngster that was Missouri that never really got to play, went down to Coastal Carolina, and now is doing very well and being paid very well. But, you know, I don't. We grew up in the era when you went out and played basketball with your buddies and you played baseball, you know, with your buddies, and everybody kind of worked together. Now with the club, everybody's got their own little club they go to, and like I said, I'm not a big fan of it personally.
Neither am I. And we were at a 1-2-3 club, and Sandy and I don't know who the other lawyer, I forget his name right now. They were both talking about the NIL and what do you think about the NIL and so forth, and all the lawyer talk, and they were talking about the legal end of it. And finally, Gus Otto, they asked him, you know, he's a member, and hey, Gus, what do you think? You played down at Missouri, and you were with the Oklahoma. He said, I'll tell you, it's real simple. Missouri University will never have another Missouri University football team. It'll never be all Missouri. It'll be some guys, and next year you'll have a bunch of new guys. It'll never be guys that start there as freshmen and go all the way through for 4 years like you did, and I did, and Sandy did. It's not going to happen anymore.
And it's very difficult on the coaches more so than anything, because you're not going to have loyalty in the future. You know, some of the coaches, Weber, who did Southern, U of I, Kansas.
Oh, Bruce, sure.
Yeah, Bruce. I mean, he points out, you know, he's got kids from 20 years ago that he coached that still call him and ask him, you know, personal questions. These kids won't have anybody to call because they're going from, Zech, how much you going to pay me? Sandy, how much you going to pay me? Rich, how much you going to pay me? It's all a money deal. So there's no loyalty. You know, it's how much money am I going to make? I'll try to play as hard as I can, but it's more money than really determination on how great I'm going to play.
Well, I don't have any facts in front of me, but I can tell you that one of my grandsons played against this kid, Wingo, who's a great receiver down at Texas. And, you know, like when my grandson used to play against him, like in the 7th and 8th grade, when I'd see Wingo and I knew that's who we were playing, I'd tell my son-in-law, let's go home. There's no game. And I mean, that guy, he just totally dominated. What a great athlete. Well, anyway, my understanding is he was headed to Missouri. I mean, they had him locked up. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he ended up at Texas. So we all know how that happened.
You know, it's you know, just think about high school and, you know, the four of us that participated in sports. We still have memories of guys we played with. They're still friends. You can go out to dinner like we do, like Zech and I do, and talk about it. Or with Bob, you know, just talk about this. And that doesn't happen anymore because a lot of these kids don't have a high school experience. They literally have a club experience. And the club, these kids come from all over the area. They don't see them every day in school. It's just a whole different atmosphere and a whole different attitude. We played with guys that we saw every day, and we stayed close friends with them through the years. And all that's going to be missed.
Yeah.
Well, Greg,
it actually starts in elementary schools. That it starts as low as the elementary schools. Like, again, Baden School, the guys that I played with at Beaumont, we went to grade school together. We played for a gentleman by the name of Howard E. Green, who again really taught us, you know, the value of athletics and the like. And he was instrumental in sending players to Beaumont, you know, and it was as you said, it was all your neighborhood kids.
Right.
Well, Sandy and I, speaking about what you just said, Rich, Sandy and I, we were on a Corey League baseball team. It was called Fixture Mart. All kids, all Jewish kids, quite frankly, from Jackson Park Elementary School. We didn't get a kid they were all not from Flynn Park or not from Pershing School, Jackson Park. And we played together, and we won the Missouri, Illinois, and Kentucky Corey League Bantam Championship, 10, 11-year-olds. But on that team, Sandy's, we still talk about it. And for many years, Barry Mandel, who was our catcher, who was with us for many years, we lost him. When we'd see each other, that's one of the first things we talked about. Sandy's dad, Max Pomerantz, and our first baseman, Ronnie Abramson, his dad, Maury, and Milton Mandel, Barry's father. And then there was a Rabbi, Robert Jacobs. He didn't coach us, but he was there all the time. And I finally figured out one day why Rabbi Jacobs was there. He had a son by the name of Dave, who was probably crazier and wilder than I was. So that was a way for him to keep his eye on this boy. And then there was a Ben Balber. So all these men, they were instrumental, like you said, in helping us grow up and teach us how to play the game the right way and just how to act and everything else.
Well, the other thing, how much money did you pay to play for those teams?
Nothing.
Zero.
Zero.
Ban Johnson League, you go back again, Roy Lee, the Ban Johnson League, when they started that, that was a great deal. And we had sponsors and, it was a heck of a developmental league for guys that were out of high school, in college, looking maybe to be signed to play professionally and the like. But never paid a penny to play Corey League or American Legion, or now even to play in the high schools. There's a little bit of money that's changing hands.
Well, like in Legion baseball, they'd say, hey, so I played with U City and CBC were together. And, you went to your first practice and they'd ask you what size shirt you wear, what size pants you wear, to give them to you, and you put them on. Yeah. And that was it.
Rich, how much did you pay to get for instruction on how to hit and how to catch and how to shoot?
It never happened. We had, again, people that were, again, where I grew up in Baden, there were gentlemen, guys in their 20s and 30s and even some in their 40s. And you go down to the ballpark and, again, take batting practice with them. And we'd have enough people on Saturdays and Sundays. You'd have 18, 20 people and they'd play games. Yeah. And some of the gentlemen played in the Muni League, or in those days it was called the Muni League. And it was a really good brand of baseball that was played, with sponsors, Again, Kudus was a big sponsor.
And Hoffmeister.
Played at Heman Park. Heman Park had baseball diamonds.
We played there. Our Legion team played there. We were playing Legion ball, and our coach, Al Grosh, got us in a Corey League, senior Corey League, that my last year I played. And we played out at Heman Park. It was a great experience. In terms
Rich, let's talk about Beaumont High School and Bob. I mean, Beaumont High School I think they might have, I don't know for sure, but maybe Beaumont High School has sent more guys to the big leagues than any high school in America, maybe.
Well, at one time, the list is pretty long in terms of the people that do it. Even going back to, believe it or not, Buddy Blattner was a graduate of Beaumont High School in the 30s. And then you start naming off names, and Leroy Thomas, Bobby Miller, Lloyd Merritt, Bobby Hoffman,
Earl Weaver,
Earl Weaver, a Hall of Famer,
Severs,
Broy, yeah, exactly. I had the pleasure of playing against Earl when he was managing in the Baltimore organization, and I can tell you it was quite an experience.
And I had the pleasure of being terminated from baseball by Earl Weaver down in Thomasville, Georgia on April 1st, 1963. I don't remember it at all, but Weaver said, I know, kid, you went to Beaumont. Hey, kid, you're hitting pretty good, but we know you tore up your arm, so go home, and if you feel good next year, come on back.
Get a job. Earl was managing at Appleton, Wisconsin the last year I played in the 3I League. And I'll tell you what, he was a handful. I just hated to play against his teams. They were the biggest complainers. I mean, their games took forever to play. He got thrown out of this one game I was catching, and he was ranting and raving and spitting and kicking dirt all over the umpire. And finally the guy threw him out, and then later on the umpire called him back and had some choice words for Earl. But he was I kidded him. I'd say you learned all your baseball from Ray Elliott. You know?
Well, you know,
Yeah.
you want to hear some Earl Weaver stories. You someday when you see Dave Phillips,
Yeah.
Phillips
Yeah.
had some really, really
Great story.
interesting interactions with Earl. You know, when Dave was in the American League and everything else. But yeah, he was a handful, but he won.
Oh yeah, he was a
Yeah.
winner. Yeah, there's no doubt about his capability as being a winning manager. But as you know, it takes talent to win, and he had a pretty talented group of athletes, you know, at Baltimore in those days. But yeah, Earl was interesting, to say the least.
Well, gentlemen, I know we have to wrap this up, but I want to thank Bob, Rich, and Sandy for being here. This has been one of the greatest just sports conversations you could have with three guys here who have a tremendous amount of background in sports, knowledge of sports, and thank you for being here.
Hey, it's my pleasure, our pleasure.
Yeah,
I'm
thanks
great.
for having us, Ron. This has been good. It's good to see Sandy. And
Let's
have
play
a-
too.
I
Good
didn't
to
hear
see
you.
Sandy and have some fun.
Yeah.
No, you know what, Hardcastle? Take two and hit to right.
There you go.
Isn't that what the good coaches used to tell you?
You betcha.
See, the young kids today, they need to just kind of sharpen up their strokes and just put the barrel of the bat on the ball and let it happen. Don't see how far you can hit it.
Yeah.
So
Or
I'm going
how
to finish
fast
with
you can
this,
throw it.
and I'm going to get one of my, because we were talking about the lessons. So I have a grandson. He was a left-hander, and he's a pretty good pitcher young. So my daughter, I pitched my whole life. Not that I was any good, but I did pitch my whole life. And she got him pitching lessons. Okay, whatever, you know. I'm your dad, but I guess you don't think I was very good. So
You're just your dad.
yeah, but that's okay. So anyway, she's telling me about these pitching lessons all winter, and he's just. So I go to his first game, and he's on a mound, and conservatively, he probably throws 11 or 12 straight balls. Not a strike. I've had enough. You know, I'm not staying around any longer. I mean, I'm embarrassed for him. And the coach never goes out to talk to him, not a word. So I walked by my daughter, and I said, you need to get your money back from that pitching coach. Anyway, guys, thanks for being here. We'll wrap it up. This show will be edited, and then it will be probably open for viewing next week sometime. I don't know what day, but if you see it and you like it, put a like and then share it with your friends, okay? Have a good day. Remember, this is the youngest you'll ever be.
Thank you.
Thanks.